He's the author of books such as The Boy Who Ate America, Dare to Suck, The 9 Universal Laws for Getting It Done, and his latest work, Dragonkyn, a young adult novel, is flying off the shelves. His name is Nathan Smith Jones, a longtime friend of mine, and today I've invited Nate onto Managed Care TV to talk about his work as an author, actor, comedian, and director, as well as other things, and we'll also talk about humor and the advantages it has for your health on this week's edition of Managed Care TV.
We're very concerned about viruses getting in through email. So we've done away with email altogether and switched to the trusty bow and arrow. Simply attach a note and fire away. Sweet Georgia. There's one now. Looks like that meeting's been pushed back 10 minutes.
I started making a list of things that Nathan Smith Jones can do, and it was quite extensive.
Thanks. Wow.
Author, right off the bat, right? Author.
Yeah.
Actor.
Yeah.
Producer.
Yeah.
Director.
Done that.
Politician.
I attempted.
Hey, that's more than a lot of people can say.
Yeah, that's true.
Teacher, obviously. Comedian, and for some reason the bottom one, it isn't really like, it's not really a noun, but it's bilingual. I don't know why. There's like all these things, author, actor, bilingual, just didn't quite fit with the list. But is there anything that you can't do?
You know, I can't do, I'm not really good at acupuncture. And if someone is like barfing out a lung or something medical, besides like homeopathic stuff, you know, like I could probably try to make them laugh. I could probably, as they're having a coronary and dying.
That's still, you know, doesn't, I mean, there's a lot of things you haven't attempted, so you don't know if you could do those things.
That's true. Maybe I'd be a natural doctor, right?
I mean, I can see you in the back of an ambulance delivering a baby. I can see you, you know, jumping out, doing a halo jump out of an airplane at 15,000 feet.
You know, I'd love to try to play, you know, like Tom Cruise's brother in a movie or something.
There you go.
You know,
see, to me, that was almost who's the guy? All right. Who's that? Help me out.
Matthew
McConaughey. That was more of a Matthew McConaughey to me, but
yeah, he has this sort of sex problem.
That's perfect. That is perfect.
I mean, come on. How many people like Star Trek? Like Star Trek? Yes? Trekkies? Yes? Let's bring it back for a third generation and have the cast of Seinfeld. Yeah? And of course, you have Scotty down in the boiler room going, oh, my life is over. There's no military, none! You know what I mean?
One of the things that, let's talk a little bit about your authorship. So your first book Dare to Suck, or what was your first book?
My very first book that I put out there was a little LDS Christian romantic comedy called Thelma.
Thelma.
And it was Hamlet backwards. And
gotcha.
It's literally Hamlet backwards. It's the story of Hamlet, except there's no death or destruction. It's basically about a woman who's afraid of getting married, and it, you know, but of course her grandma in a dream tells her marry him, and so she, like Hamlet, she spends the rest of the story wondering if she should. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
So that was was that your first publication? Like, was that published as a book, or?
That was actually I self-published that one. My very first one that was published by a publisher was this little story called "The Boy Who Ate America."
Right. Yes.
A little children's story, but it was really a parable for everyone. It was kind of a man shall not live by bread alone kind of premise.
Right. Yeah. That's a great book, children's book. I have that. We read it to our kids. And the great thing about that is the illustrations are amazing.
Oh yeah, Casey Nelson, she's amazing. I mean, yeah, that's one thing that many people do better than me, which is graphic design.
Right.
I have a feel for it, but I just don't have the practice. So.
But that was really a knockout of the park for a first book. I mean, if you're going to test the waters as an author, you should probably test it as a children's author, right? Make sure that you can at least get that down.
Right. And it's funny because that being said, I mean, I do think that being a children's author, boy, it sure taught me how many people try that. You know what I mean? Because
right.
It's really hard to get anything out there, even something really, really good. I think if the messaging had been different in the marketing, I think it might have done better. But it definitely did better than any other book so far. So.
Well, that's the key word is so far, right? We've got to after you die, we'll really find out what your worth is as a writer, right?
Exactly.
Hemingway, those guys probably really sucked too. I mean, until they died, and then everybody realized, wow, that was really great stuff.
Yeah. When I'm pushing up daisies, that's when my time will come.
So let's talk about Dare to Suck for a second. And the reason this resonated, initially you wrote this book, I mean, obviously the title, Dare to Suck, most people are going to be like, what? Like, why would I read this book, right?
Right, yeah.
But it has a very poignant message, and originally you wrote it for other writers, like people that...
Yeah, I wrote it for authors who, like... The 9 things I wish that I had been told when I started out writing would have saved me a lot of time and headache if I had just followed this advice.
Right.
I have seen some of those things in other places, but I had never seen all 9 of these things that are in my book altogether.
Right. And the reason it resonated with me is because I think the underlying theme is just don't give up. Would that be it's just
right.
How many, and of course being an actor and kind of interacting in that business, that a lot of people, and especially the great comedians, have failed over and over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just the fact that you never know when your big break is going to come. And what are some of the other points? And again, I apologize, I don't have my copy in front of me right at the moment, but
that's okay.
Give us a highlight of a couple of the other points that you make in the book, just as a teaser.
Well, some of the points are one of the points that I had never really seen before, and I think the reason is because there's some big conspiracy, is that self-help books are really good to a point. Oftentimes we can get and I in the book Dare to Suck, which is a rather thin volume, I actually said, this is one of the reasons why any how-to book should A, be short, and B, it shouldn't be gouging the consumer. Like, dare to suck more.
Dare to suck 15.
Yeah.
The 19 things I didn't tell you the first time around.
Yeah. The 10th way to dare to suck, or
right.
Dare to suck for teens. I'm not going to have any of that.
Think if Covey came back 10 years later and said, those 7 habits, there were actually 19,
yeah.
and I forgot a few of them, so here's a few more.
Yeah, and there's even a book he wrote called The 8th Habit, and a book that his son wrote called 10, the 7 highly effective habits for teens, highly effective teens. And to me, it's a cash grab. Now, might there be some good advice in there? Sure, yeah, but I don't know. To me, it weakens or dilutes what's there. And one of the biggest things that I put in there is that there was a time when I was reading a lot of how-to books about writing, but I wasn't writing. I was scared, and I was using that as a comfort blanket. I was scared of sucking, to be honest, and so I was using, reading voraciously, doing that part of the work, reading voraciously about writing and the process of it, and I was doing all that, but I was convincing myself that I was writing and learning about writing. But all I was really doing was learning about writing, and I was reading all these things. It's a lot easier to learn about writing than it is to actually do it. And so that's one of the biggest things that I remember. That's one of the 9 that is probably the highlights that I really hadn't seen in any other how-to book about writing. Another thing was don't be shocked if someone comes along and takes your idea. Like I wrote a book I wrote a screenplay once, and it was called Afterwards. And it was basically, that one, I think it called Far From Heaven, or it was the movie with Mark Ruffalo and Reese Witherspoon. Far From Heaven, is that it? Where she's dead and he's alive. And anyway, she's this really bright, vivacious person, but she's dead and she's a spirit. And he's, of course, not really living, right? So he's like, oh, da-da-da, my life sucks or whatever. And I remember when I came up with Afterwards, I liked the idea of a dead guy teaching a living guy how to live. And it was about these 2 best friends, these roommates. And I liked that idea. The screenwriter of Far From Heaven, they just simply had the great idea of making that, making the couple a couple, not just 2 guys that are roommates and they're best friends, but make it a love story. So they had a better version of what I came up with. And, you say, aw, shucks, and you move on and you keep writing other stuff. And so that's the kind of thing that I came up with that I noticed. I think a lot of times people will go, oh, someone took my idea. Oh, no, I guess I'm not a writer. You know what I mean? Or, oh, no, I guess this is not something I should do, And, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm always curious about where writers come up with their ideas. So let's kind of let's kind of backpedal a little bit. So you did a kids book, children's book. That was kind of your first out of the gate. You did Dare to Suck, and then just what was it, 3 summers ago or 2 summers ago that you came out with Dragonkyn? Yeah,
Dragonkyn was last year. Yeah, and then,
last year, okay.
And then late last year, I bought the rights back from the publisher, a local publisher here in Springville. And to be honest, they really didn't have, they didn't really get urban fantasy. They didn't really get those types of books out there. And so, in all fairness to them, maybe that wasn't totally their fault, but they allowed me to buy it back from them because I just still believed in it, and I still do. And so I bought it back from them, and I spent 3 months, and I just worked really hard doing another version, another edition of the story, which I added like 3,000 words. I just spruced up, got a lot of some of the clunky sentences out of there, and just spruced it up in a lot of ways. Both in terms of story, in terms of some of the specifics of the writing itself, and then I just relaunched it under my own little banner, called my own little micro publishing company that I created for that express purpose, called I Read Books and Media, and so I just did it, and now I don't know if I'll ever go back. I mean,
it seems like you write according to is it according to like your own family experiences? Like, you have children that are in the teenage or preteen years.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what gives you your thrust or motivation to write these things?
That's such a good question. Since '97, I had started writing just screenplays, and I was just a screenwriter. I was just obsessed with making it in that business, and then I had this idea for The Boy Who Ate America, and I just decided, I'm just going to write this children's story and see what happens. And one thing led to another, and it got Deseret Book involved and everything. But your question about exactly where does that come from? Yeah, I like writing stuff that I think I would want to read or watch. Sometimes it's ill-informed or it's ill-advised, because sometimes I kind of step in it. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, or I don't know the genre really well, or I don't know the tropes really, like the ingredients I'm supposed to have in it. But I've learned a ton. Nothing will make you learn like sucking at something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. You know what I mean?
But is the process? I dabble in music a little bit,
Sure.
And I know that when I go into a recording studio, and I have kind of a general concept. Songwriters or musicians, they call it noodling, where they're just kind of doing a little jam session. They get a few notes together. Is it like that with writing? Like, do you keep a pad of paper next to your bed, where if you wake up in the middle of the night and you have had some sort of dream or something, that you kind of note that and then you kind of tinker around with that? Or what's the process like?
A great question. Stephen King famously said that keeping a writer's journal is a great way of immortalizing horrible ideas. And I kind of ascribe to that, because when he said that, I realized, wow, I don't really have a writing journal. I mean, sometimes I'll have on my phone, I'll have my voice memo, and I'll just flip that open and just kind of send a note to myself if I'm on the road or if I'm driving, or I'll just say a quick thing and then I'll transcribe it later. And it's funny, because lately I've been a lot more open. Before it was, okay, let's make a great story that'll do amazing business so I can do it full time. That's always for 20 years
right.
ago, I've been chasing that. And then I started thinking, sometimes you just have to let go and go, I'm just going to write what I believe others would really want. And I'm still going to tinker like you do with the noodling. I'm going to tinker, and when I'm coming up with ideas, I'm just going to throw stuff at a wall, see what sticks. Sometimes you'll surprise yourself. I think it's the same with music. Wouldn't you agree that when you're surprising yourself, that's when the magic's starting to happen? Like, that's when you're like, what is coming out of my fingers here? What is this? When you're surprised at either a turn of events, or the way something changes, or an idea that jumps out. It's such a thrill to create a single line, or a great metaphor. A great line when you're writing dialogue for, say, a movie, but a great metaphor when you're writing a book. It's just so fun, because it's going to jazz the audience. It's going to grab them. George R.R. Martin also said that he was an entertainer. Like, he started writing books because it was nothing. He couldn't make movies. He didn't have the money. So but he wanted an audience. He wanted someone to love his stories. And so he just was determined to get these stories down. And and that's kind of like what I'm trying to do. I mean, I'm just open to nothing happening. Jim Croce, it also comes down to Dare to Suck, because how Jim Croce wrote that song, I've Got a Name. And one of the things he says in it is, I've got a song, and I carry it with me and I sing it proud. I carry it with me and I sing it loud, and if it gets me nowhere, I'll go there proud. That's
awesome.
And that's always been kind of the guiding light for me, is at the end of the day, if it's something I love doing, I'm just going to keep at it. And another thing in Dare to Suck is make sure your day job, don't get a day job, get a day career. Like, I love education. I really did fall in love with it. And I'm so proud that I actually have something besides writing and all my other Hollywood or New York Times best-selling dreams. I have something besides that tempers it, that also informs it, you know? And it's something I'm proud of, something that fulfills me, right? So that if a few thousand people who have read my book or whatever, they really get into it, whether it explodes or not onto the publishing scene, I'm still fine because I'm doing what I love, both with education and storytelling. So. Dragonkyn, now an audiobook.
So, Dave, Hedis is coming.
Steve, Hedis is coming, guys. So he's warning me, but he's really talking to you people out there.
Yes, I'm talking to everyone out there, and there's a couple of real exciting things happening. Number one, our first Hedis show of the season is on September 7th at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's not to be missed. Second, and not least important, is the fact that we have Hedis Geek t-shirts. They are on sale right now. So if you go to hediswork.com, there's a link there that will take you to the fundraising page. And the reason that we're selling these shirts is not only because they are cool and classy, but we're also raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is a very important charity for me because my nephew, Christopher, got a Make-A-Wish back in the 90s to meet Michael Jordan because he had a heart transplant issue.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
You know, we have a candidate, I think I mentioned to you before. Shout out to Karina in California with CareMore. They're actually in Hawaii right now as part of a Make-A-Wish project that was honored for her daughter. And so they're enjoying a trip to Hawaii as we speak.
That's awesome. And by the way, 15 bones is all this is going to cost you. So for $15 plus a little bit of shipping, you'll get your Hedis Geek shirt. $15, Dave. Can you go wrong with that?
No, it's a great deal, and I know that those that are involved with Hedis are really proud of it. So they like to talk about it and kind of flag that, fly the flag very high for Hedis. So this is another way to do that and let everyone know that you are not only in Hedis, but you are a true Hedis geek.
That is true. Hedis Geeks unite. So we've got Hedis training going on at hediscertify.com. We've got Hedis work coming up, Dave. It's August, and we have like 4 or 5 Hedis openings right now.
I just took a phone call about Hedis literally 5 minutes ago of someone that wants to be involved and is excited about it, and they're already making calls in August.
So you need us for
Hedis, September 7th.
September 7th. We'll see you for the next show. RJ, thank you for your editing on this, by the way. And we'll see you then.
Until then.
Hasta luego. So do you feel like your writing, and especially Dragonkyn and some of the recent stuff you've done, has been more fulfilling to you because it doesn't have necessarily all the working parts of a film or a TV show? Or
yeah, in fact, it's kind of funny you say that because every time, like this movie that's half in Spanish, that my dear friend and producing partner Steve Thornley is also a producer on and an investor in. That movie we shot it 5 years ago, and here it is still in distribution hell. You know what I mean? And the big problem is the guy with the real money, Felipe, who's in Mexico City. He won't put another dime in, just because he just won't. And on the other hand, he could sell it tomorrow if the movie only cost like $60,000 to make. But because it cost $260,000 to make, it needs to be in theaters if he wants Netflix to pay us that. Does that make sense? But it costs money to put something in theaters. So, and so there's where we're stuck because I have no more money. My producing partner, Head Audible, the guy in north of LA, he's trying to find people, to put it in theaters. it's this ongoing thing, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So it is. It's a horrible thing, and it's funny you say that because the reason I started writing novels is because I would get so angry at the process of filmmaking. Like you were saying, all these moving parts, and so much is out of your control. And that as soon as I would get done with a film, I would jump into writing a book. That's how I did. That's what happened with Thelma. That's what happened with. I wrote the first draft of Thelma, the long winter of my discontent, when my first film, as cute and funny as it was, I'm proud of it. It was my film school. This little movie called The Work and the Story. If people are interested, they can go to livingscriptures.com, and it's like an LDS Christian streaming service. It's on there. You can find it. The Work and the Story.
Or they can call me. I've got like 10 or 15 copies.
Yeah, so. You've got a few of them.
And to me, looking back on kind of some of those endeavors, it doesn't really dishearten me, even as an investor, because I think you've found a level of success that is kind of it fulfills me knowing that you've been able to channel your creativity into other things that have become successful. And I think anybody would tell you that if you're trying to break into filmmaking and dealing with fundraising and dealing with distribution and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of like rubbing two nickels together and hoping to make a dime or two if you can. I mean, at this point, you kind of just hope that that it gets released to an audience, but at least it's not a situation where it's a paradox where it could be like, hey, we filmed it in black and white and now now we're in color and it's going to get released in black and white, so it's not going to be anything like that. But
although it's kind of funny how The Work in the Story, like when The Work in the Story was released in 2003, it was right at that moment when everything was just starting to go digital, and I'm sitting there with DVDs and VHS copies.
Right.
So it's so funny how the business can just take a huge turn, and suddenly you're kind of left in the dust. Not just because, in that case, it wasn't just because of that. It was because I made the very, very first mockumentary, and most Mormons are like, what's a mockumentary? What is that, huh?
Most people were really confused by
they were.
By
and
that.
So when they saw it, they're like, what is this? What? So expectation, again, whether you're making a movie or a novel, expectation is extremely important.
But I think it's different with movies, because with movies it's like, maybe a trailer comes out or some sort of clip comes out on YouTube or Facebook or whatever saying this is what's coming, right? Whereas when you write a book, it's like, well, you're not going to know anything about it until the book is actually done, right? Because that would be kind of missing the point. Buy the book and you'll find out all the good details and good specifics. But a movie, there has to be this teaser. There has to be this, hey, come see this movie.
Yeah.
So that's why I've really again, I'm kind of enamored by the fact that you have continued to channel that creative energy. Let me ask you this: when you come up with a concept or an idea, for something you want to write, and do you buddy check a lot of your initial thoughts with like your spouse and your family?
Oh, I do, and other friends who are storytellers as well. I really try to look at it. I try to approach it scientifically. Like, hey, what is this idea that I have? Am I contributing to the genre? Is it something that could fill a niche in the genre? Is it something that's close enough that would make people comfortable? Like, does it have the tropes and the themes and the things that people kind of look for that's comfortable because they like kind of similar stories? But is it different enough that you're exciting them with just new things, new ideas, new concepts within that genre?
I was just going to say, being creative though is you're kind of not worried about. I mean, you have to concern yourself with what audience this is going to go towards.
Yeah.
But not to the peril of your creativity, right? Like
Right.
it's not like a movie production company saying, hey, we've got to have a drama to compete with this other drama or whatever.
Right.
You're just trying to say, would this generally be appealing to most people or to a certain genre of readers, right?
Exactly. I really, it's funny you say that, because I do think it's a balance. Like, on one hand, if you're 100% just chasing the market, then you're a hack. Then you're just like, oh, maybe this will make money, right? But if you don't consider the market, you're not going to sell anything, right? Whereas on the other hand, if you make something really profoundly you, it might not find an audience right away, but it might not find an audience at all. On the other hand, if it's so unique and so out there and so wow, then people will find it. So I think it really does take a balance, and you have to ask friends, and really, and it's also about feedback. A lot of times when you're asking for feedback from friends and family, because you know more about storytelling often and more about your story than they do, you have to really sift through, okay, what feedback it can really help my story, and you'd be an idiot not to take it if it can help your story, and what feedback is just stylistic choice. Because, you know what I mean? Like, if anyone sits down and writes the exact same story, it's going to be different. Same story, same characters, same everything. It's still going to be different because someone else is writing it. So there are certain stylistic choices someone wouldn't do that you would. That stuff, just let it go. Now, if more than one person says that stylistic choice isn't working, then do something about it.
Right down to it, employees pose too many security threats to our network. So I got rid of all of them. Even the maintenance people.
Well, let's switch gears for a minute, because, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because not only are we long-term friends, but I've always enjoyed your comedy. In fact, it's Dave Malarkey, right, is your one of your newest featured characters, and we're running some B-roll right now with some of those commercials, and
those are very fun. My latest alias is
yes, Nathan Smith-Jones, aka Dave Malarkey.
Yeah.
And by the way, I still want my Dave Malarkey figurine.
I've got it for you.
You got it for me. Okay.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have to take it from a child, then I'll be okay. But so I'm in the healthcare business, and I think one of the things about I think healthcare in general is there's so many depressing sides of when people become ill or whatever, that people forget that humor, I think, is a natural. It's a natural pharmaceutical. It's your endorphins, it's your epinephrine that you get from enjoying comedy or humor.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk to you, and I even have a little maybe game that we can play, and I know you're short on time, but kind of a little improv game. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm sure you see you've seen your comedy turn people's frown upside down, so to speak. But what do you think about comedy and humor in general as it relates to health?
I've always loved comedy. I've always studied it. Like, what does make people laugh? Why do they laugh? I mean, I think every comic, which is what I tried to do in my 20s, every comic understands maybe innately that laughter is good. It's good for people to do. In fact, I did a little research, and it turns out the body does not care if the laughter that you're doing is real. And that's why they have these things are popping up called laughter yoga. And it was based on this guy who lives in Chicago, and he had cancer, and he just decided to turn off all the TV, turn off all the bad news, and just watch comedy after comedy after comedy. He just laughed, and it literally cured him. And he wrote a book about it, and some guy in India picked it up, and he created this thing called laughter yoga. And you literally stand in a circle, and these people just go ha ha ha, and they're just and sometimes, most of the time, the laughter is forced. You're just doing it because your body needs it. The intake of oxygen, the several reasons that are physiologically good to laugh, and then because it's so ridiculous, then the laughter becomes real. Because you're looking at the ridiculousness of it, or the people that are there for the first time in the laughter yoga thing that like, you guys are nuts. You guys are seriously nuts. And then everyone laughs because the outsider point of view is always funny.
So you're getting laughs from genuinely funny things,
right,
and you're getting laughs from stupid jokes.
Exactly. Or you're just saying ha 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 ha, and you're just laughing on your own when there's no joke. In fact, it's so funny. Did you know that? I was also studying this neuroscientist. What's her name? She's from England, and her name's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, she said that we really only like 18 or 28% of the time do we laugh because something's funny. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Most of the laughter we do is our chuckles, or it's socially based laughter. It's laughter that we laugh to when we want to tell a friend, I like being with you. Like, it's not even something that's inherently funny. But, and you know, girls laugh at guys when they want to say, I'm impressed with you. Please continue to date me. And vice versa. You know, so like, funny how only 28% of the time we only laugh when it's funny. 28% of the fascinating.
So let's go over some of your best bits. What's your favorite comedy bit you do?
Gosh, well, you know, a great one that always worked well was I would open up my stand-up and I would always say something like, first I would convince the people that I was not goofy at all. I'm one of these hard, you know, this really cynical comics that just go, yeah, whatever, da-da-da, right? And I
sort of a Stephen Wright type of thing,
exactly, or even like more angry than Stephen Wright. Like, he's very monotone, but even more angry. And so people immediately think, oh, this guy's an angry comic. He's just going to be telling witty stuff. And so they get away from the silly. They think, oh, that's not what we're going to get from this guy. And since comedy is part surprise, I just go, guys, can we pretty much agree there's nothing on TV? I mean, the only thing I got on TV last night was like Ace Ventura in Spanish. That's one
of my favorites.
So, and then of course everyone would laugh because they're like, A, they're not expecting that. They're not expecting silly. B, they're not expecting someone to do an exact recreation of Ace Ventura in a different language. You see what I'm saying? And it's just like, what am I looking at? And so that was part of the fun, and I always got to laugh.
But, you know, I'll tell you what's bad about television is late night TV. There's nothing on late night TV. The only thing I could get on the other night was like Ace Ventura in Spanish.
Well, thank you for that, because again, I think humor is, it's what keeps me going, right? You know, if you,
some days, especially,
you've got to look at life. You get a look at life through a whole new lens. If you just think of it in kind of a, not a joking way, but just kind of in a really you know, just not taking it seriously. You know, just kind of you know, there's obviously a time and a place to be serious, but I think 95% of the time, sarcasm will cure almost every sensitive or I don't know, precarious, you know, type of situation.
Exactly. When things are getting so serious, or 95% of the time, it's good to pop the bubble where people are breathing their own air and it's all tense and serious. And so if you pop the bubble to make them realize, wow, there's a bigger world than what's going on right here.
Right.
Oftentimes that can alleviate a lot of stress with some laughs. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's kind of cliche, you know, don't sweat the small stuff, but I think it's so true, because half of it is not even more than half of it. More than half of life is just, you know what, we're here, we're doing the best that we can, and you know, lighten up, you know, lighten up a little. So what's next for you? What do you got? You know, you've just come out with the revised Dragonkyn version.
Yeah.
What's next on the agenda?
Because I'm in this grad program that will be pretty intense for the next year or so. I think that will slow down Dragonkyn Part 2. But that will come out. It will come out. Even if it takes me another 3 years, I'm going to get that one out. In the meantime, I'm working on this little story. It might end up being a fun dramedy, not a dramedy, a fun novella. 30 or 40,000 words is all, and it's done in the same Dragonkyn universe, except this time this will be the second novel that I will write with a female character. A female protagonist, and and so might even end up being a love story. So who knows?
Wow, what'd you think about that? That sounds pretty special. So if you were, okay, so maybe to close things out, because again, I know you're short on time here, but if you could do a trailer for Dragonkyn. Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
By the way, is it Dragonkyn or is it Dragonkyn, or what's the proper?
It's Dragonkyn, but some diehard fans, there are a few out there. Some of them call it Dragonkyn because it's KYN.
Well, that would be your British
right.
People,
It would be
right?
kind of a Dragonkyn. It's almost like a Welsh kind of accent there.
Something like that. So anyway, in your best Don LaFontaine movie trailer voiceover, give us your Dragonkyn trailer intro.
Okay, how about this?
All right.
How about Mark Mondragon is 14 years old. He discovers he has ancient dragon DNA. Dragonkyn, now an audiobook.
That is awesome. I love it. See, that's why I think we should have you do our telephone voiceover. Nobody would imagine that when they got to an auto attendant that we would have Don LaFontaine doing our voicemail there. So
Hair National, rated PG-13.
another one of my best bits.
Company data is important, but also kind of complicated. So I came up with our own way of encrypting everything we do here.
Hey, does that meeting start at 3? Us day at they, eating may, arts day, at a ethray,
S-yay.
I a, 8a, I may object.
Well, Nate Jones has been our guest today on Managed Care TV. Always a gentleman and a scholar. And Nate, for my 50th birthday coming up in a couple of years, let's get that movie distributed, okay?
Yeah, seriously.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, buddy, for joining us today. I think with RJ's editing and post-production skill set, we'll be able to tighten this up.
Awesome.
And we'll send you an advanced copy.
Thank you.
Sound good?
Yeah, happy to be a part of it, and thanks for having me. And
you bet.
And just thanks, bro.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right, bro. See you.
All right. Bye-bye.